The struggles of technology and when you are no longer, at that stage of being able to quickly adapt
Yeah, I never thought I'd get here.
to it. So Kellé and I are back in front of you. We do this, the third or
I
once a
think,
month, I think we're doing
yeah.
our power collaborations, and we're here. We're going to talk to you about the financial and legal side of being a business owner in the various aspects. So last time we're in front of you, we talked about Romario Foods and the issues that come about when you got employees, contractors, and you misclassify them. So today we're going to talk to you about you're transitioning out of your business when you get to that stage in terms of exit planning, and what that looks like from a financial standpoint as well as from a legal standpoint. What are the things you should be considering, etc. So before we go any further, Kellé, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kellé Thorpe. I am a fractional CFO, and I show business owners how to understand their profit margins, learn the story behind their numbers so they can be sustainably profitable in the long term. We do this by taking on your bookkeeping and accounting, but sitting with you monthly and actually going over your reports and giving you tailor-made strategies and a roadmap in a way that you can understand it.
Cool, cool, cool. And I am Patrice Tisdale. I am your chief legal strategist. I work with entrepreneurs, business owners, and organizations where I am, working with them to leverage the law to their advantage. So they have full confidence in their contracts, in their decision making, and a fully vetted path towards their goals. So similar to Kellé, as part of as one of my retainer clients, we sit down and we meet at least on a monthly basis where we're talking about what is going on and how you can navigate whatever is going on and what your plans are. So it is not just a call me when there's an issue. Right? We don't want to do that because all business decisions are legal, does have a legal impact, they're legal decisions. So I want to be all in your business to see what's going on, and I do so using my TLG's invincibility method.
Yeah, I like that you said that because I think a lot of business owners that we come across are in a reactive mindset, right?
Mhm.
They're used to coming to an attorney when there's a problem. They
Mhm.
don't think why should I reach you before there's a problem or when things are good? And it's
Mhm.
the same to me. They want strategy after they done messed up their business
Mhm.
finances, right?
Mhm.
Or they don't even know that they need a CFO. They just because they've only been told that they need a bookkeeper or a tax person. So I
Mhm.
think this leads well into what we're going to talk about today. And like you said, in the exit strategy space, but have you thought about selling your business?
Mhm.
I think a lot of business owners, maybe they have thought about selling it, but it's not something they really put a lot of thought and actually planning into doing.
Mhm.
But also the fact that they may wait until they're almost ready to be out of the business to
Mhm.
begin exit planning.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that. At what point from your side of things do you think business owners should start exit planning?
To your point, it's if you've ever had those thoughts, and I know as business owners, we all do, right? We
Mhm.
get frustrated at some point. We think about let's burn it down and start over. And then you're like, okay, no, 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 no. Like it's not that. But to me, I would tell someone, that definitely should be an indicator. When you get to that stage, even if you decide not to, and even if you're like, oh, I was just frustrated in the moment, if you do not have an attorney that you're talking to regularly, then in those moments, you should at least explore and talk to someone to figure out, what are some of the things, talk to an attorney, what are some of the things I should be thinking about and planning for? It's like when you're kids are going off to, your kids are going to go to college and you start thinking about how am I going to pay for this and what do I need to shift so that we can afford to do so, or they can get, maximize their fast for whatever else. It's the same, kind of situation. It's when you start with, if you've had the thought, don't wait until you get an offer or until you're like, all right, yeah, I'm done. Because sometimes at that point you may start making decisions out of desperation versus out of strategy. So when the first inkling, and just explore it. You don't have to make those decisions. So that would be when I'd say, look and talk to an attorney. What about from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree with you. And what resonates and came to my mind was the phrase you hear people say all the time, start with the end in mind, right? And normally for me, what that means when you hear that, you've already started, right? You've already started. So
Yep.
you're like, all right, well, I already started. So clearly I didn't start with the end in mind. So now what? Well,
Mhm.
now this is the start, right?
Yep.
So that's what I want people to do is immediately to your point, when you start thinking, what's the future look like for me in this business? So start soon, because then the sooner you start, the more time you have to work through your numbers and plan the numbers piece of it out,
Exactly.
right?
Hmm.
So if you come and you're like, oh, I'll get a CFO when I'm winding down the last 5 years or even later,
Hmm.
then by then you've shortened out the time that we had to work together and strategize building up the value of your business to
Hmm.
prepare for the exit. So if you're going to sell, or if you're going to, I don't know, merge or do whatever, or let's say you're not going to completely exit, you're just going to transition in part. So you're going to
Hmm.
partially sell, or you could fully sell and stay on during the transition for a period of time. But
Hmm.
that's why you need to talk about it soon, because you got to paint that big picture of what all that looks like. And then from my standpoint, the more time we have to strategize and compound your revenue and
Hmm.
get the value up, the better. So
Hmm.
it really is for me like start soon. Like as soon as you start thinking about it, start with the end in mind.
Hmm.
And exit planning also goes along with, which I know Carla Ukman, who we talk a lot with on our platform,
Hmm.
goes along with the retirement piece. And I feel like a lot of people put exit and retirement to an age,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's not the case. Like we're in our 40s, we could plan to exit and retire now. Like
Hmm.
the only thing that's tied to age is your qualified retirement accounts, which that's
Yep.
her area of expertise that she talks about. But there's no wrong or right age to consider yourself retired.
Hmm.
So for me, I think the misconception is people think they only need to start talking to a financial strategist or a CFO when they're maybe mid 50s or 60 and they're almost ready to retire and start drawing Social Security. When no, we needed to build that business value up long
Hmm.
before then.
Hmm. Yep. And you're so right, because it's even, as we're talking, and I was like, I didn't really have necessarily, a plan per se in terms of like, for some of you, you guys know I'm a real estate investor as well. And, think we're notorious. I didn't have a plan in terms of when am I going to sell these buildings, if I'm going to sell the buildings, oh, well, I'm getting it. So they're profitable enough and the boys can take it over, when I'm done. And not think about that aspect of, well, what happens, or what
Yeah.
do we do next?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No,
like I
it
said, talking to you or talking to Carla to be like, okay, well, what happens? Let's talk about that so we can plan for. But
Yeah, because the planning out the trajectory of growth, I actually did this last week for my own business for the first time. I looked at my growth in bite sizes by year, and I'll know, this year I made this year this is what the profitability was, but I've never graphed them out in a linear way. And
mm-hmm,
when you graph things out in a linear way and you can see the ebbs and flows and you understand and you're planning ahead, it gives you that boost of encouragement that, okay, this is really attainable and this is the plan because it's all lined out. I
mm-hmm,
want to transition and talk to something else you actually just touched on is your loved ones. I'm going to lead a business or I'm going to lead the buildings to the loved ones. Because
mm-hmm.
I have a couple properties too. This leads into trust. I'm like, okay, I have a revocable trust. I have a person, what is it, the trustee of
Mm-hmm.
the account, all these things. But ultimately, I got 2 houses, 1 kid, each gets a house. Got 2 kids, 2 houses, one gets a house. Um, the business, yeah, you could just sell the business and divvy the money from the business between those 2 kids. Is that really that practical? And what happens? What if the kids want the business, don't want the business? What does that look like for the ones of us that are like, oh, my daughter, she seems awesome at this. I'm gonna lead this business to her, and then I'm gone, and she don't want the business. Now what?
You basically leave a mess behind from a legal, standpoint, because now it's going to be left for, the courts if your child really has no interest in it, or God forbid, like something happens to them, before you, and you never actually update what's supposed to happen. Um, the business just going to be left in like this, purgatory state. The court is going to step in, your creditors, or vendors will step in, and they're going to determine, as you said, they may sell it off. Like the power of what happens is no longer in your hand, or your estate, on your estate is going to be left figuring out what that means. And again, nobody steps up. That's going to be, the state system, whatever their system setup is going to look like. So they're going to have to be someone that's going to do, the final tax return for you as a person, bringing in the business. If you have a business with partners, this is where your operating agreement. I know some operating agreements don't do that. It's something I do with all my clients. I make sure it's like in your operating agreement, what happens if, somebody passes or somebody's no longer able to. So if you don't have that and you have partners, then they're going to get to decide, right? So there's a lot of different, if you're by yourself, your estate has that burden. If there's no one in your estate that steps up, your assets and all that jazz, the court is going to step in, and the court system gets to decide. Like, they're the default estate planning if you don't have one. If you have partners and it says nothing about that, you now create a conundrum, because your daughter, your children, your spouse, your partner, your mama, and them may step in and be like, no, 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 they get this part of the business because they owned it or they started it. Now it's going to be an argument, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have heirs that's left, then your partners are going to get to figure out and decide, what happens if your operating agreement is silent and you had nothing, in the background. So
Yeah. That's
succession planning.
That's what I was just about to say. That circles back to our first point of we're like, start soon. And this is why you hear that phrase, start with the end in mind, because there's no age. I know we have this misconception that death comes with old age. Like you're gonna grow old and die. No, how many people we done seen unfortunately pass very, very, very early, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not the reality. And the point of exit planning is not just for, hopefully you live the life long enough where wherever your time or your date is that you do want to exit, and whatever your retirement or after work plans are, you can live those out. But the reality is we don't know when our life is going to be over. So this is why the start with the end in mind from the planning and the operating perspective is so, so important. And sitting with Tracy and having the conversation, you alone, you and your partners, to understand, like, how does this all play out? Because the last thing you want, like you said, is your child, your kids, your parents sitting in a meeting when now you got 2 partners that they likely don't even know, had never even met, and they don't know anything. It's just, it really opens you up for a big, 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 big mess. Let's talk about the folks that are like, the kids don't want it. No one in my family wants it. I don't really think the business is worth much of anything anyway. So when I'm gone, the business is just gone. The business dies with me. What do you say to those? Because I know we're laughing because we know, right? But there's people that really do think that. I see that a lot, especially in when I first started. Some of the first clients I took on outside of my corporate consulting area were construction contractor, like carpentry workers, plumbers. I see it a lot in that industry because
Mm-hmm.
they've just falling into their business. You know, they were working for some contractor before, and then they got a couple side jobs, and next thing they knew, they had a plumbing business or a
Mm-hmm.
carpentry business.
Mm-hmm.
And no one in their family wants to do that line of work. And now grandpa got bad knees and he's still trying to lay cabinets, and he gonna lay these cabinets and lay these floors until he gone. And the business gonna die with him. How does that work?
Well, before I was curious to hear your take on it, but real
I
quick, I
told
want to
you.
hear your take. The business, I always say, think of it like your clothes, right? You have actual tangible things. When you die, do those things just disappear? Right? Somebody has to figure out what to do with them. You're gonna figure out if your mama gonna take it, if your child's gonna take it, etc. They're going to have to be sorted out. And so the business is the same thing. Remember, the business is a separate entity from you. It may be your baby, but it is a separate entity. So you have to plan, for it. So if you die, and say you die, you leave, debts owing, or you have, oh, you were supposed to pay, this contractor that, or subcontractor that finished this job for you, using your example of a contractor. Now that subcontractor is like, where my money? He passed away. They're going to look to file, they may file claims against the estate to say, no, this person, here's the invoice, or here's what I did. Again, you create a legal mess. And you're doing, whichever loved one is left that's going to handle that, you are doing a disservice to them, because now they're going to have to figure out, did the subcontractor that's saying, no, 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 he owes me money, she owes me money, do they really owe you money? Because now if they have to pay out these bills, that leaves your state even with less money for what to happen and what's going to go to your loved ones and what's not. So you see that where it's going to be, they now have to make a decision. Are we going to fight this in court, which attorneys fees, time, stretch, making things take a lot longer, or are we just going to say forget it and pay these people and not have what you may have intended for them to have in the process. So no, you need to put something in place.
Yeah.
Short version, like.
I know, right? Like it's amazing. So from my standpoint, a lot of it does tie into exactly what you said. The first thing that comes to mind is who you owe. Like you passed away, them debts don't die with you. And also note to y'all, personal debts don't die with you either. So we're not gonna talk about that, but they don't. So people think
You mean that it won't just like disappear? They can go,
I ain't gonna call
inherit.
out I ain't gonna call out family, people, friends that I know personally that think they can spend on these credit cards and pay the minimum balance, and I don't care what's gonna happen. I die, I'm just
Yeah,
gone. That ain't how that work. That's not how that work. But it's the
that's
same with
another
your business.
live.
They still them debts still alive and well. Um, and it's the same with the business. If you when you pass on, whatever debts and liabilities you have, your business is still responsible, which means your estate would then still, to your point, have to work through and pay off those vendors, those debts, or whatever liabilities that are left behind.
Mhm.
So that's a big thing too on my side. But to the positive part of it too, what about the people that owe you money? Like the people that are indebted to you that owed you money. Let's say you've had a contract that you've been trying to get paid on for a year, that was maybe in litigation, those
Mhm.
types of things. You don't want that to die with you. Your
Exactly.
state could potentially be due whatever the winnings or earnings are of that reward of that contract. So
Mhm.
those are the things you too. People often think the negative side, like the debt gonna die. I don't care about the debt. But
Mhm.
what if you were in the middle of a legal dispute and you had with one of
You
your
work at
contracts,
$250,000
and
or
you just
yeah.
gonna die, you gonna leave that too? You're not all right with leaving that though, but you can be all right with leaving those debts. That's how it works. But people
Mm-hmm.
don't think from both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
And on my side, especially when my clients that are running accounts receivable AR, so you send invoices out and you get paid on those later in the date, or this
Mm-hmm.
happens a lot in the industries we were just talking about, construction,
Real estate.
um, places like that, even
Mm-hmm.
some like marketing agencies. And some
Mm-hmm.
people, especially for you, like in some litigation space, you'll invoice people and you have AR.
Yep.
So those accounts receivable items, those are items that is revenue that is due
Mm-hmm.
to, you don't want the revenue to also die with you, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to hope that when you transition on, the business is doing well. Like,
Yes.
yeah, it sucks that you got to pay off debt and liabilities, but at the end of the day, the business doing well, it will be fine because there'll still be something left, right,
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
your heirs. I think a big part of it as well, which loops back to you, Tracy, is the importance of the wording in their contracts. I see this a lot from my end. And while I can't and I don't have the education to advise on it, I know to send them to you to address it,
Mm-hmm.
because their contracts say nothing about the unforeseen circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Like what
Mm-hmm.
happens, people think it can automatically be reassigned, and that's not how it works. Like if you're in the middle of a project and you pass on, the project doesn't just die. Like that's
That,
not,
yep.
these people still expect whatever project you were working on, that it still gets done.
Mm-hmm.
So this stuff should be addressed in your contracts, the unforeseen circumstances as
Mm-hmm.
well, which is why when I'm sitting with my clients in strategy, I recommend that they have a legal strategist on retainer to
Mm-hmm.
revisit and make you think of all these things, because you don't know what to ask when you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is
Mm-hmm.
why you need to sit with your financial strategist, your CFO, and actually budget to have a retained counsel
Mm-hmm.
on retainer in your finances. So it's like any other thing. You're not even thinking about it. Whatever their flat fee retainer is, you just pay
You
them
just,
that every month, and
mm-hmm.
it's a part of your operating costs. But yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know I kind of went on about that, but let's talk about that piece, Tracy, like the contracts piece now.
No, but it's true. Like it's in two places, right? Where what we're talking about would need to be addressed. Your operating agreement, which is I'm like, don't be just grabbing a template off and, no shame if you do when you're getting started. Everybody needs something, most
Mhm.
banks, they're gonna ask to see your operating agreement if you're opening up a business, business account. So no shade if you grab something from a friend, you grab something offline, etc. But once you are going, sit down, even if you cannot afford a continuous, monthly relationship. Hey, ask how long this is what you want to do, or here's where you are. Can I get an hour of your time and we can go through this? At least you know the things that you should be thinking about and looking at. But yes, again, your operating agreement, you need to have in there what happens if if you're doing a partnership, if the partnership, passes, what things are the business responsible for versus, what's not. So you need to have that addressed there. And then to your point, in a service contract, do you have in there that someone else can step in, to complete the service? And does your client, because there's some services where even for myself, like I've had that where I go into the contract and it's like, oh, we can substitute da da da. And I was like, because I'm not getting the service for just anybody else to do. I'm getting it for you to do, right? Because I know or see your level of expertise. So if you don't have that clause in there, or if you had someone like myself that's just like, no, 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 I need you to be the one to fulfill it, then what happens if you're not able to do so, right? And it's not just death. You could get disabled, right? You could get into an accident, you could get sick for an extended period of time. Like, what happens if you're not able to perform anymore on this contract? Does that mean you forego the whole thing? You got to refund which parts? Like, you know, So you need to have that conversation to make sure. And, when we're drafting, when I'm drafting your contracts, I don't just be like, oh, here's what you do. And, here's it, go ahead and do it. I talk about what your business and process is like. I draft something, send it to you to read it over. Then we set up a time like, okay, let's go over what I have drafted. Does this make sense to you? Does it not? Which parts do we need to tweak? And at times I will give you the draft with my notes. So later on, if something changes in your process, etc., you can go back and look to see, okay, what did she say about this? Or, is this one of these things I need to keep? So you don't always have to come back to me about, some of the basic, for lack of better phrasing, or the foundational aspect parts of the contracts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So if you guys don't have a legal strategist and you like, I don't even know if I can afford a legal strategist, then that means you need a CFO. So
exactly. That's but that's exactly what it no, but that's exactly what it is. It's like, what can I afford to do?
yeah.
And not just close your eyes and be like, oh, I'm gonna swipe this card and hope that it goes through.
Yeah, yeah. So if you are at $250,000 in gross revenue, at least, get on my calendar, go to maximizer.kommaswithkellé.com, and that'll take you to a few questions, and I'll build a customized profitability plan for you for free. And then it'll take you directly to my calendar to schedule, so we can have a one-on-one, go over that customized plan and talk more about the areas of any hidden revenue that I find, any cash flow leaks in your business. So that's that's Maximizer at kommaswithkellé.com.
There you go. And if you are in business and you are, you've been doing it, you have your success, but you have not actually ever really stopped and had your documents looked at, or, gone through, I do have a free download for, the questions you should be asking yourself. I don't remember the link right now. I'm gonna put it in the chat once we, when we push this out. But also just book a call. It's go.reallaw, so REALLAWESQ.com /book call. I'll put that in the chat as well. But book a call, we chat. Kellé always gets on me, it should be 15 minutes.
It's gonna be 15 minutes. I'm about to start putting timers on your phone. Hang up after 20. I got a 5-minute buffer.
Send me a Voxer. Like,
And
get
I
off
won't stop.
now.
Yeah.
But it's a free call. We sit down, we talk about, what's going on, where do you want to go, and then we can talk about how you can start getting there, and whether or not we would be a fit to work together. So do not sit in any kind of, unsure space or discouraged space because, oh, I'm not sure I can. As Kellé says, go do your, maximizer, see where you're at, because I know even myself, like, there are times like before she started looking at my stuff, I'm like, I was one of those. I'm just like, here.
Yeah.
And then there are times where I'm like, oh, the money ain't there. So let me pay for it personally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
don't
so
don't
you
do it.
gotta know. You gotta know. You can't, even when the money is there, you need to know, like, what is the
Mhm.
roadmap? It shouldn't be, oh, I got money in the account that's there to spend. No, that's not sustainable. So
Mhm.
hop on our calendars. We offer free consults,
Yeah.
so make the most out of it. There's never any judgment. Wherever you are is the right place to start. So if you have any questions, additional comments, or things you want us to talk about, as always, DM us or leave them in the chat, and we will get back to you guys with those. But
Yep.
otherwise, I guess we'll see you.
Next
Well,
month.
they'll see us around because we got a whole
Yes.
bunch going on, but we'll be back together next month.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.